This is the Entrelac wrap that I made for the tutorial on knitting Entrelac. You can get these instructions for Entrelac on the blog, sapphiresandpearls.com. You can also get the free pattern for this wrap here on the blog as well. In this tutorial, I will be knitting this little sample of Entrelac based on the instructions that I have here. And we'll be starting with the cast on and working our way up to the bind off. So if you want to get some yarn and needles and print out the tutorial, you can follow along. You can use any yarn you like and needles appropriate for your yarn. You don't have to use different colors. I just use different colors so that you could see the different parts of this sample a little bit better. If you are new to Entrelac, you might want to go ahead and try using different colors just so that you can see a little bit better what you're doing. If you are somewhat familiar with Entrelac, you can use any yarn that you feel comfortable with. I have 20 stitches cast on here according to the sample pattern that I'm using, and I'm ready to begin my foundation triangles. To do that, I'm going to purl 2 stitches, and then I'm going to turn the work. Knit those 2 stitches, turn again. This time I'm going to purl 3 stitches, turn, knit those 3, turn, purl 4, turn and knit those 4, turn, and this time I'm going to purl 5 stitches, and this will complete my first base triangle. Once you've purled 5 stitches, you're not going to turn and knit back. I'm going to turn here just to show you what it looks like from the right side of the fabric. So once you've purled your 5 stitches and completed the first base triangle, you're ready to start your second triangle. So we're going to start over at the beginning by purling 2 stitches, turn and knit 2, turn and purl 3, turn and knit those 3 stitches, turn and purl 4, turn and knit those 4 stitches, and finally turn and purl 5 to complete our second triangle. Once you've purled 5 stitches, do not turn. you're ready to begin the third triangle. Purl 2, turn and knit those 2 stitches, turn and purl 3, turn and knit those 3, turn and purl 4, knit those 4, turn and purl 5 stitches to complete the triangle. We now have 3 triangles completed, and we're ready to start the last triangle. So again, it's purl 2 stitches, turn and knit those 2, turn and purl 3, turn and knit, turn and purl 4, turn and knit those 4 stitches, and finally turn and purl 5 to complete the last triangle. That completes our 4 base triangles for the sample pattern, and this is what you're going to have on your needles. We're ready to do our right side triangle now, and I'm going to switch colors just to help you see what I'm doing. And all we're going to do for our right side triangle, I'm going to begin by knitting 2 stitches, and then I'm going to turn and purl those 2 stitches, turn. Now what you're going to do is you're going to knit into the front and back of the first stitch, and now we need to begin attaching our right triangle to our base triangle here. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to slip knit the stitch from our right triangle and the stitch from our base triangle. So slip knit, and now we're going to turn, and we're going to purl our stitches, turn again, knit into the front and back of the first stitch, and if you don't know how to do that, I have a video on it. Now we're going to knit until we get to the last stitch. In this instance, it's just 1 stitch. And with our last stitch, we're going to slip knit, turn the work, and purl your stitches. Turn the work again. Knit into the front and back of the first stitch. Knit to the last stitch, and when you get to the last stitch, you're going to slip, slip, knit. And this will complete our right triangle. So once you've reached that point where you have slip, slipped, knitted your final stitch, you don't want to turn. And this is what you will have so far. You can see your right side triangle is attached to the side of your base triangle here. So don't turn, and we are now ready to begin picking up stitches to make our first right side rectangle. To knit our first right side rectangle, we're going to be picking up stitches along the left side of our base triangle here. On the right side of our base triangle, of course, is our right side triangle that we just completed. So in this particular pattern, we are working with 5 stitches. So I'm going to be picking up and knitting 5 stitches. And if you look right here, you can see this edge. It's not very neat. You can still pick stitches up along this edge, but I prefer a little bit of a neater edge to pick up. So I'll show you that once we start knitting our rectangle. So here's 1 stitch. Here's 2. Here's 3. Oops. Here's 4 and 5. Okay, so I have my 5 stitches that I just picked up. And now we're going to turn the work and purl those 5 stitches. When I'm knitting my right side rectangles, I like to slip the first stitch of every right side row so that I have a clean edge to pick up when I'm doing the return tier of wrong side rectangles, and I'll show you the clean edge as I go. So to slip your stitch when you're doing the right side rectangles, all you have to do is just slip your first stitch knitwise, and that's it. Now we're going to continue knitting until we get to the last stitch. And it's really easy to see here because I have 2 different colors of yarn. But even if I were working with the same color or similar colors where it was hard to see, it's pretty evident where we're going to be making our next knit stitch, because there's a pretty significant gap here between the base triangle that's beside it that we'll be working with and the last stitch of the rectangle that we're starting here. So when you get to your last stitch, you're going to slip, slip, knit. And you'll be using the last stitch from your first right side rectangle and the first stitch from your base triangle here. And that's going to connect those guys. And that'll help even out your base triangle so that it doesn't look like this mess here. So slip, slip, knit, turn, and we're going to purl those stitches. Turn. And I'm going to again slip the first stitch knitwise, and then knit to the last stitch. And again, I'll be doing a slip, slip, knit. turn and purl, turn, slip, and you don't have to slip your stitch the way I'm doing. I just prefer a neater edge, like I said. It's personal choice, really. So I'm just continuing to purl back and knit to the end of my row and slip, slip, knit. Slipping my first stitch, knitting to the last stitch, and slip, slip, knit. If you don't know how to slip, slip, knit, I do have a video on that, by the way. Okay, if you take a look here real quick, you can see the edge of my rectangle here, and I have a pretty clean edge to pick up. So when I come back and do my wrong side rectangles, it's going to be pretty easy for me to see where I need to pick up. So this is the last row of my rectangle here, and when I get to the end and slip, slip, knit, I'm not going to turn the work. Once this rectangle is completed, I'm ready to start working on the next one. So to do my second right side rectangle, I'm going to be picking up 5 stitches along the left side of my base triangle here. So just like we did before, pick up and knit 5. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now that I've picked up the 5 stitches that I need for my second right side rectangle, I'm going to turn my work and purl those 5 stitches. And this is going to be done the same way that I did the first rectangle. Okay, so turn, and I'm going to slip my first stitch, knit to the last stitch, and then slip, slip, knit to connect to my base triangle that is below. Turn and purl. Slip, slip, knit. If you don't like all of the turning, you can just work backwards and stay on one side of the fabric. I think it's quicker for me just to turn and work instead of fussing around with knitting backwards. Slipping my first stitch and knitting to the last, slip, slip, knit. This is my last purl row. of this rectangle. And just like before, when you've worked your last stitch, you're not going to turn. You're ready to pick up stitches along the left side of your base triangle to make your third right side rectangle. So picking up to knit, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and turn and purl. And of course I'm slipping my first stitch, and you'll knit to the last stitch, slip, slip, knit, and we'll be joining up with our last base triangle here. Something I wanted to mention about that slip, slip, knit, maybe you haven't noticed. When I do my slip, slip, knit, I slip the first stitch knitwise and the second stitch purlwise before knitting them together. Most of the time, instructions will tell you to slip them both knitwise, and either way is correct. I just think that when you slip the second stitch purlwise, it makes the decrease a little bit neater, but that's just me. Everybody knits differently, so maybe you won't find that that's the case. You should just do whatever way is the most comfortable for you. Alright, I'm on my last row here of this rectangle. Slip, slip, knit. And that completes our first tier of the right side rectangles. You can see here that our base triangles have straightened out. They look more like triangles now. And here we have our right side triangle is attached to one side of our base triangle. And then the other base triangles, they're all joined up, as you can see. The only thing that we have left to do now is make our left side triangle, and we'll be picking up the stitches along the left side of our last base triangle to create our left side triangle. Same as before when we're picking up, you're just going to go along the edge of this triangle here, pick up 5 stitches. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then turn your work And now what we're going to do is purl 2 together, and then purl your remaining stitches. Turn the work and knit all of your stitches. Turn, purl 2 together, purl to the end, turn and knit, turn and purl 2 together, and purl the last stitch. Turn and knit the 2 remaining stitches, and then turn 1 final time and purl your last 2 stitches together. And you're not going to turn after you purl 2 together for your left side triangle, because our triangle is now complete. Let me just turn this around though and show you what it looks like. And it's kind of hanging out here, but once we start doing our wrong side rectangles, we're going to attach it and it will straighten itself out. So that's what you have so far after completing your first tier of right side rectangles and your left side triangle.